Warning, this episode contains sensitive content that some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Westerners found attempting to smuggle heroin out of Bangkok have been sentenced up to 50 years.
I thought you had to die to go to hell, but hell is right here.
In 1978, Australian rugby star Paul Hayward walked straight into the jaws of Thailand's most feared prison, Bang Kwang, known by legend as the Big Tiger.
The Big Tiger, they used to call it like this. It's said that the prison used to eat them alive, and they ended up dying inside the prison.
11 years later, Paul came out a broken person. And 3 years after that, he died in his home. But the Big Tiger is where his life really ended.
Is it hard to hold on to your sanity?
It is, yes. But there's guys that walk around here, I kid you not, they're zombies.
It's a different world. When I got there, the first thing I've seen was people in chains.
Let's put it this way, a lot of the people in here will never see free air again.
Paul Hayward was 26, tough, gifted, and on the verge of something bigger. He was a contender for the '76 Olympics as a professional boxer, and his rugby career was booming. Then he said yes to one drug courier job worth 20 grand in Australian dollars. Easy money, one night. Be the muscle, keep things steady. Get in, get out. It was all going to plan. And then, the knock came. What horrible things did Paul see and go through inside the Big Tiger? How did he secure his safety among the more dangerous inmates? And who ultimately set him up? To get a better idea of Paul's experience, we spoke with Alain Olivier, author of Luck Frenchy, and a former inmate at Bang Kwang, where he spent 8 years after being wrongfully convicted of drug trafficking. And what he told us was shocking.
On my arrival at the prison, there were 6 guys there, naked, straight flat on the floor, with a guard beating them up with a bamboo stick for the simple fact that they forgot to salute him.
This is the story of Paul Hayward and the prison that ate him alive. Before Bangkok, Paul Hayward looked like the kind of guy whose story was supposed to go in a very different direction. He was a devoted husband to his wife Gail, and a father to his son Bradley and daughter Kelly. Fiercely loyal and built to protect, he was the kind of guy who would step in for a mate before asking questions. That loyalty is part of what dragged him into this disaster, and his brother-in-law was partly to blame. Gail's sister was married to Arthur Nettie Smith, one of Sydney's most feared underworld figures.
You were described as an active criminal, well known as an assailant, someone who attacks people.
No one could come forward and say I've ever attacked them.
Nettie was not some colorful rogue. He was a violent, well-connected criminal with a reputation big enough to scare people into doing what he wanted without having to repeat himself. Then there was Warren Fellows, Nettie's drug runner, and a man Paul had grown close to. Fellows later remembered Paul as the kind of friend who protected people almost automatically, which, in a twisted way, made him perfect for the Bangkok Job. Paul wasn't the brains of the operation. He was there to back Warren up, to make sure he didn't get burned. And for that, Paul was offered about $20,000 to help Warren smuggle 18.5 pounds of heroin from Thailand to Australia. At the time, that was life-changing money. Roughly 3 years of his rugby salary for one trip. Stories like this rarely start with obvious evil. They start with one bad move that feels smart in the moment. You know, when we talk about survival on this show, it's usually about extreme environments or dangerous situations. But one thing humans have always relied on to survive is where we come from. That's why I tried MyHeritage DNA, our sponsor for today's episode. You can explore your ancestry from around the world with coverage across 42 ethnicities and over 2,000 regions. And the process is super simple. It takes 2 minutes, you do a quick cheek swab, send it in the mail, and a couple weeks later, you get to learn where you came from. We're gonna send her off, and we'll see you back in a little bit. All right, my results are in. Let's see. Here we go. Excited to see where I come from. Jared, you are 76.8% Ashkenazi Jewish, Central Europe. But where is the other percentage? I'm very curious. Let's see. 15.3% Ashkenazi Jewish, Western Europe. 7.9% Ashkenazi Jewish, Eastern Europe. It's shown parts of Kazakhstan, Poland, Hungary, which my grandparents were Hungarian, and the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, France, Switzerland area. So I'm very European Jewish. All right, wow. Well, that explains a lot. They also show you DNA matches with real people you're related to, so you might discover relatives you never knew you had. And guys, if you're worried about privacy, MyHeritage has committed to never sell or license your genetic data, so you can rest assured that it's in safe hands. If you want to try it yourself, click the link below or scan the QR code and use our code SURVIVE19 to get MyHeritage's exclusive bundle for the same price as their standalone DNA kit at just $19. This includes a 30-day trial, free shipping, their Ancient Origins feature, letting you trace back your DNA up to 10,000 years ago, and so much more. Now back to the show. Warren Fellows had reason to believe the police were watching him. He already had problems in Bangkok on an earlier run, and not long before this trip, someone tipped them off that Warren was under surveillance. Paul and Warren both got nervous. They raised their concerns with Nettie. Nettie basically told them to relax. If police had something, Nettie said he would know. And when they still hesitated, the reassurance turned into something closer to a threat. So they stuck to the plan. Paul went along with it and lied to his wife, Gail. He told her he was heading off with his rugby team, the Newtown Jets, on their end-of-season trip to the United States. Gail even drove him to the airport. Meanwhile, the entire operation was already rotten from the inside. Because while Paul and Warren were trying to convince themselves this was still manageable, Australian police had already wiretapped Nettie Smith's home phone. They knew the names, they knew the plan, and Thai authorities were already waiting. The trap was set, and Paul's journey to Bang Kwang Prison had already begun.
I only got to see Paul very briefly after my arrival in Bang Kwang, because he was transferred to Australia after that on the medical pardon. What I saw of him just before he left, that wasn't a healthy picture.
That was the end result of the Big Tiger's meal. But the first bite happened the moment Paul stepped off the plane. At Don Muang Airport, one of their first conversations was with a jumpy driver named Noi. He told them 2 Chinese men had just been executed for drug offenses. Not exactly calming news, or maybe the universe was trying to tell Paul something. Then Noi drove them to Montien Hotel, near Patpong, and somehow the plan still kept moving. But at the hotel, the nerves only got worse once Noi brought over the heroin. Paul got spooked and asked Warren to take the suitcase out of Paul's room and into his. But Warren never moved it. Paul didn't know it yet, but that suitcase would keep poisoning his life for decades to come. Then, Noi left a note with a concierge saying he was busy and couldn't drive them back to the airport the next morning. Warren kept that to himself. Instead, everyone went to sleep with a suitcase full of heroin still in play. Later that night, Warren thought about dumping the drugs. Then it hit him. The suitcase was still in Paul's room. The next morning, the knock came. Warren thought it was immigration. It was Major Viraj, better known as Mad Dog, and Thai police were right behind him. They burst into the room with guns out, tore the place apart, and dragged Warren into Paul's room. Held at gunpoint, Mad Dog yelled at them to hand over the code to the briefcase. Warren immediately punched it in. Inside were 24 bags of heroin, 18.5 pounds in total. That was not an arrest anymore. In Thailand, they were now inside a machine that could do almost anything to them and call it procedure. The next 37 days weren't about finding the truth. They were about breaking people. Paul and Warren were paraded in front of cameras with the heroin spread out in front of them. Mad Dog beat them senseless and told them that the law could have them shot. And in Thailand, that threat had a very specific meaning.
It's a shock. You're waiting for the judge to tell you that you're going to be sentenced to death. They would tie you up to a cross and they put a little flag be on your back, just straight in line with your heart, and the guard comes to you and tells you that not to be mad at him because he's not shooting at you, he's shooting at the flag.
Above all else, Mad Dog wanted one name: William Sinclair. Paul and Warren knew him as the Old Man, a key figure on the Bangkok side of the operation, and one of the men who helped set it up. At one point, Mad Dog emptied his gun's chamber and pulled a giant bullet out called a dum-dum that leaves big holes in people. He offered Paul a grotesque little game, from one sporting man to another. Mad Dog would give Paul a 100-yard head start to run, then try to shoot him. If he missed, he'd say Paul got away. If he hit him, he'd say Paul tried to escape and was shot in the process. For Mad Dog, it was a fair deal. He knew both Paul and Warren were going to die anyway. Paul refused, despite his chances. Eventually, the pressure worked. Warren signed a confession that implicated Sinclair, but the ordeal wasn't over. They were taken to the police interrogation cells at the drug suppression unit. Grim concrete rooms with a long water trough running along the wall, the kind you'd expect to see for a farm animal. The next day, the threats kept coming. Mad Dog showed them a newspaper about recent executions and told them they were next.
After everyone is unlocked up, you hear the guards coming and they drag someone out, and you know that they're gonna go shoot him.
I have no clue when I will die. They could inject me today or tomorrow.
And the terror didn't stop with the threat itself. At one point, Mad Dog made Paul and Warren witness gruesome torture. Alain witnessed similar torture inside the system.
Believe me, I've seen Asian people having 12-volt batteries with wires hooked up on their balls. They were doing things like that back then.
Paul and Warren got so broken down that they tried to drown themselves. But they couldn't do it. They pulled each other back up for air. Years later, Paul would go under again. That time, no one pulled him back.
You'd have to be very desperate or very stupid to do drugs in Thailand.
When the interrogation ended, the nightmare didn't. It just changed rooms.
Upon my arrival at the prison, there were 6 guys there, naked, straight flat on the floor, with a guard beating them up with a bamboo stick for the simple fact that they forgot to salute him.
First came Bombad, a filthy holding prison for drug cases. The inmates had a better name for it: Monkey House. Guards moved prisoners with electric cattle prods. They confiscated all their money and possessions. Food was a watery mess of rice and soup. Then they were crammed into a tight little room and told to sleep on straw mats on the floor. And here the story picks up one of its ugliest ironies. Many of the men being held on drug charges were using heroin inside the prison already.
I've seen people arriving there totally clean. Within weeks and months, there was so much drugs inside the prison that they were going through it. We had one guard in Bombay who was walking around like Mr. T, with chains and rings and everything. It was a night shift. He would have filled up small boxes or little boxes full of heroin. He threw that in the yard. In the morning, prisoner would come and look at the little box, grab the little box, and the guard would gets paid for that. We had guards bringing heroin by the kilos in Bangkok.
I just want to shake some sense into you kids that are using drugs and thinking about using.
Finally, Paul, Warren, and Sinclair, the old man, were visited by lawyers. Warren heard that another prisoner was able to bribe a guard to help him escape. He took his shot with an English lawyer, asking her to secure 10 grand from Warren's bank. But That backfired badly. The lawyer went straight to the Thai governor and spilled the beans. From that point on, the screws only tightened. They were sent to Maha Chai, a Bangkok detention center. It was also known as the Fun House, thanks to an urban legend where prisoners were put in thatched balls made of bamboo and kicked around by an elephant. Ouch. Once they arrived, Paul heard a sound he'd never forget, and neither did Alain.
Clink, clink, clink. I will always remember the noise. That was a silversmith who was putting chains on inmates with a sledgehammer to put your foot on the anvil and have the chains put on you like an animal. It's not only the physical part, it's the humiliation of all that.
And this place was worse. 18 hours a day in small dark rooms. Rats, mosquitoes, cockroaches, knives, darkness, heat. And the crowding was exactly as bad as it sounds.
You got a cell 16 feet wide by 24 feet long. We would be like 20 to 40 in a cell like that with only a hole in the corner used as a toilet.
You literally cannot lie flat on your back. Put your hands on your stomach. If you do that, your elbows are on two other beds. That's pretty damn close, and that's 15 hours a day.
Nobody could afford to panic or argue with one another. They took turns stretching their legs because that was the only way the whole group could survive the cramped space. Paul kept trying to stay optimistic. Then a letter arrived from Gail. He had missed the birth of his baby daughter. That kind of moment doesn't just hurt. It leaves a hole in you. And still, the prison found new ways to degrade him. A sewer rat bit Paul while he was using the toilet hole.
You know, you got to put up with cockroaches running over your face while you're asleep and through your ears, and these little worms like centipedes that can get in your ears.
Another prisoner showed them how to fatten cockroaches with stolen rice, mash them up, add salt, and eat them as protein.
You had people, desperate to eat properly. We had fish pounds with snakes also, and just like Paul Hayward and Warren Fellows I'd seen back then, Thai inmates would kill the snake and put them for sale, just like if you go in a butcher shop.
This was not a prison. This was a machine built to tear people apart. Finally, their lawyers revealed that a trial date was set. But to call it fair would be an overstatement. Thai courts in the early 80s were not built for mercy. There was no jury, no proper record, just one judge and long, grinding delays.
There was no way to plead my case over there. As soon as I had a court-appointed lawyer who barely spoke any English, and he was a drunk on top of that, he would come to court, it would smell like booze.
For Paul and Warren, the case dragged on for years. And by then, they'd already figured out the shape of it. Thai authorities already had intelligence on them. Sinclair looked like the organizer, and Paul, though guilty, was still the smallest piece of the operation. Warren actually tried to help him. He argued that Paul was basically an unwitting accomplice compared with the others, a man used by people above him in the chain. Warren and Sinclair were given life sentences. There are conflicting accounts about whether Paul got 20 years or 30. Either way, it felt like an eternity. It still took the best years of his life, watching his kids grow up. And the worst of it was still ahead. Because now, they were going to Bang Kwang, the big tiger. Bang Kwang was not just another stop in the system. It was the system at its most brutal.
After they put chains on me, that I realized that I was surrounded by walls and barbed wires and everywhere, and towers with guards and guns.
As Paul and the others pulled up to the prison, they were surrounded by manicured gardens near the gates. It was all a facade, hiding a dark secret from the public. The smell hit first. Open sewage, rot, hot concrete, flies. Then the rules of survival changed again. The water prisoners drank and washed with was pumped from a river just downstream of the prison's own sewage outlet. And Alain fills in what that looked like in practice.
That was directly the water from the river that they would let rest in different bowls. All the shit would come down in one pint, and they would throw the clean one in another, let the shit go down, and like that. After that, they would, after 5-6 shots like that, they would try to boil it and drink it. Otherwise, there was no clean water.
Very quickly, Paul understood the most important prison rule of all. In a violent hierarchy, you can't arrive looking like lunch.
You got to stand for yourself. I mean, if you let people abuse you in a place like that, other people will come to abuse you as well.
A huge American prisoner challenged Paul to break concrete, prison slang for a fight. Paul was badly outsized, but he also knew that if he backed down once, he could be prey for the rest of his time here. So he fought out of sheer terror, landed enough punches to drop the bigger man multiple times, and earned something priceless in a place like Bang Kwang: respect.
I ended up to defend myself and beat the crap out of them pretty quickly. Even if I had chains on me, I would never let them take my integrity and my dignity away from me, whatever the circumstances.
The fights probably helped keep them alive, but Bang Kwang prison had a way of making everything worse.
To be in prison is one thing, but to be shackled like that, just like an animal, this is barbaric. It's inhumans, and it's meant to break anyone who walks there.
Years of chains, filth, untreated wounds, and constant fear slowly broke the prisoners down. Then came August 1985, and all that buried rage came roaring to the surface. A riot broke out after hopes of royal pardons collapsed. Commandos stormed the compound. Gunfire tore through the yard. Prisoners were beaten, trapped, and left without help. Paul was one of the men crushed by it. His right leg was shattered from the shin down. Then he was locked in a cell with dozens of other men for days without food or medical care. That riot was a turning point for Paul. After enough years in Bang Kwang, men start reaching for anything that makes life bearable. And in that prison, heroin was one of them.
At the time that Paul Hayward and Warren Fellows were in Bang Kwang, that was, the level of corruption was absolutely incredible. We had guards bringing heroin by the kilos in Bang Kwang.
That drug was the reason Paul ended up there. Sadly, it became the only pain relief available to keep him going.
When you're addicted to heroin, you don't think about any rules. All you're thinking about is every day getting something to feel normal or whatever you want to be again.
For the record, we don't condone illicit drug use on this show.
So remember, don't, or else. Okay?
In April 1989, after about 11 years inside Thai prisons, Paul finally got what looked like a miracle. A royal pardon tied to the King of Thailand's 60th birthday. It came after years of lobbying by his family and Australian officials. He was hustled out, put on a plane, and sent home. Now, that should have been the happy ending. It wasn't even close.
He was transferred to Australia after that on a medical pardon. Warren Fellows also got his medical pardon. There's been a lot of abuse, a lot of drugs, and both of them were sick. They were dying.
Paul came back gaunt, damaged, and addicted to heroin. He was also carrying HIV and tuberculosis, both linked to needle sharing inside the prison. He had left Bang Kwang behind, but Bang Kwang hadn't left him. He came home to a wife who had waited and kids who barely recognized him. He struggled to sleep in a bed and preferred the floor. He drifted, stared into space, talked like a piece of him had never left the yard. That is the part survival stories usually leave out. For Paul, getting out was one thing, but surviving what Bang Kwang did to him was the hard part. 3 years later, in May 1992, Paul Hayward collapsed in his family bathroom in Sydney and died of a heroin overdose. The drug that got him sent to Thailand also kept him going in prison. And in the end, it killed him. Men who come out of Bang Kwang didn't talk about it like a building. They talked about it like it was alive. Alain describes leaving Bang Kwang like this.
After having walked inside the tiger's mouth 8.5 years ago, today as I'm walking out, I feel like the tiger is spitting me out, just like if I had been a bad bite, something bad to chew on and just spat me out.
If you want to hear more about Alain's story and fight for justice, please check out his book, Luck Frenchy, linked below. Warren Fellows would also later write his memoir, The Damage Done, as a warning. Not a flex, not a prison war story, a warning. Paul's tragedy was bigger than one bad decision. It became a case study in what brutal systems actually do. Some changes did come. Thailand officially replaced firing squads with lethal injection in 2003. And Bang Kwang abolished the permanent welded leg irons in 2013, though restraints were still not gone entirely. Paul Hayward did survive the interrogations. He survived Monkey House, he survived Maha Chai, he survived Bang Kwang, he survived the riot, he survived the chains. In reality, Paul's life didn't end in a Sydney bathroom in 1992. It ended in a hotel room in Bangkok in 1978. The big tiger just took 14 years to finish the meal. We'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor, MyHeritage. If you'd like to trace back your ancestry from around the world like I did, scan the QR code and use our code SURVIVE19 for our exclusive $19 discount. If you found Paul's story haunting, watch our deep dive into the Otto Warmbier tragedy to see how another young man's life was claimed by a regime that doesn't believe in second chances. We'll see you next time on How to Survive.